Hi there, and welcome to the Multiply You podcast, where we showcase top experts in their space and reveal all the secrets you need to know to multiply you.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Austin Clark here, host of the Multiply You podcast. Very glad to be visiting with our guest today, Todd Leyse, who I'll introduce here in just a moment. But I think especially those of us that are in the pest control industry, which I am, Todd is, he runs a fantastic company. We are going to get into some of the unique issues and challenges that have probably only come around once in most of our lifetimes as it relates to the just explosive growth that some pest control companies have been having. And normally the challenge isn't to have the resources to be able to service that growth. It's to get that growth in the first place. And so this is something that I think a lot of us are struggling with. And so I think that as Todd and I get into it, we will certainly hopefully say some things that will be helpful and valuable to help us over the next couple of years to scale and service that growth. This podcast and this episode, it's brought to you by my company, Moxie Pest Control. We have had some, as Todd and I were getting to know each other, kind of pre-podcast, some of the same challenges that we are not complaining about at all. We have been growing a lot. We've been doing it a lot of the same ways that you have, whether it's been in search engine optimization or pay-per-click campaigns or referral campaigns, or just different sorts of programs like that. One of the primary ways that we've done it, especially in Phoenix, has been via acquisition. A lot of people don't know, but there is well over 1,000 pest control companies in Arizona. And so we have always got to be on top of our game, taking care of our customers and servicing them. Because if not, pest control companies are like Circle K or the gas station. They can just go to another one or another one or another one. And so if you are a pest control operator out there with 3 or 5 or more trucks on the road, you're looking to golf a little bit more, work a little bit less, I would certainly love to talk with you about that. You can reach out to me directly, either at my email, which is aclark@moxiepestcontrol.com. Or you can call or text me. My cell phone's 480-254-9730. And the final plug that I wanted to put in is the last 2 years, Michael E. Gerber, the author of E-Myth, he sold a bajillion copies of it. He and we have been co-authoring the E-Myth pest control contractor or business for the pest control space. It's finally done. First book I've ever co-authored or written, last book I'll ever co-author or write. But he and I together, we're launching it Thursday, November 3rd in the evening in Phoenix. He'll keynote. And if anyone would like more information about that, I think it'll be a great crowd and a good opportunity to network and meet other people in the industry, not just here in Arizona, but nationally as well. I'd love to be able to give you more information about that. I just had a great time getting to know Todd Leyse just a few moments before the podcast. One of the things that's unique about Todd, as I've reviewed his bio, is most of us pest control operators come from the field. That wasn't necessarily Todd's experience. He owns Adams Pest Control, but he also has a computer science degree that has allowed him to be able to develop a cutting edge software for the home service space, for the pest control space. It's called Blue Star Field Service software system. And so please check that out. We'll get into that in the podcast as well. And the thing that's also unique about Todd is that he has grown and scaled his company over the last several years to be on a very, very prestigious list. And all the listeners that are in the pest space will know it's the PCT Top 100. And so for those companies that report, it is basically a ranking by revenue, and they have grown. To be able to be on that list is just an accomplishment in and of itself, but to be ranked number 51, which Todd and his company Adams are, is just absolutely phenomenal. So we've got a real expert here. We've got a real pro. I hope everyone in the pest space specifically will lean in and take some of the things that Todd will share with us to heart. So Todd, thank you so much. So glad to have you here. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks. That's a great introduction, Austin. I appreciate it. And
Hey, it's all true. It's all true. There are things that you've done. So thank you for being you.
well, I appreciate it. The company was started by my dad and his partner in 1971, and we've grown 51 straight years through 7 different recessions, or I guess you could maybe call it our 8th recession now. But it takes a team. It's not me. It's not my sister and I own the company now, but Dad passed away a few years back. But the reality is, it takes a team, and we've got a rather large team now, and a great team. So it's all about everybody, kind of moving in the same direction and kind of have an alignment to kind of get the performance that we seem to be having in recent years.
So, Todd, if you don't mind, talk to us a little bit more, and thank you for sharing a little bit of the history of Adams, but maybe walk us through some of your past so that listeners can get to know you a little bit better and kind of how you came up through the ranks, if you will, and just different things and experiences that prepared you to be, and your sister as well, to kind of be where you are and do what you're doing. That doesn't happen by accident,
So the company was started when I was 6 years old. So I grew up around it and went on ride-alongs as a kid with my dad, but never really planned on being in the industry. Wasn't a big fan of looking at bugs under magnifying glasses and things like that. Got interested in computers, and Dad had a good enough living to be able to afford buying me early computers that watches these days put them to shame. But got involved with that, got a degree in computer science, but also took a lot of business classes too, basically the equivalent of a minor in business administration. Was in junior achievement in high school, which is a business organization, as president, and vice president of marketing. So I was kind of had small business in my blood. It was when my dad's partner passed away that my dad asked if I had ever considered a career in pest control. But prior to that, I had worked 6 years for 2 different Fortune 100 companies in IT as a Unix systems administrator, and then managing a department, and had like 25 people under me. So I had managing experience of a department that was about as big as Adams was when I got here. There were about 30 employees, and we were doing about $2 million in revenue then. And now we're about 140 employees. So we've grown quite a bit over the last 26 years.
Incredible. What a story. And so thank you so that's a little bit of your background. What was that either conversation like, or what was going on in your mind as your dad approached you and you were considering, because maybe it wasn't even in your mind at all. Maybe you were doing what you were doing, but what made you decide, hey, I can do this, I can grow this, this is something I want to do. What was all that like?
So my dad and his partner had sold 10% of the company to a key employee back when they were pretty small, and it wasn't worth a lot, but it was 10% of the company. So when the one partner died, my dad was trying to work it out with the other 10% owner and figure out what the future direction was. Well, my dad was a bug man. He was a high school graduate, 1 year of college. Yeah, you could maybe say he wasn't the brightest guy, but he was really hard worker, very likable. So he trained every new technician in the company and did a lot of sales and service work. So he was that guy. He was not a numbers guy. If you started talking numbers with him, his eyes would just gloss over. Whereas his 10% owner partner, he was really strong at sales and managed a lot of the employees at that point in time. But he was probably not a numbers guy either. So the two of them were trying to work this out, and they were disagreeing. And so my dad brought me in to help prepare a proposal to work it out with the 10% owner, who, like a lot of salespeople, had a very strong ego of himself. And, when we were presenting the proposal to him, he said, Todd, what you don't understand is I'm in a position of power here. And I almost wanted to laugh, but I didn't laugh in his face. But he owned 10% of the company. He doesn't really have power at that point. So we gave him a really good offer. He wanted us to give him a better offer. And my parents decided to give him a worse offer. So, let that be a lesson to people. Sometimes if you think you have power and you push for more, you might get less. And so giving him less pissed him off. And he said he's going to quit. In 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, he was going to start his own company and he was going to bury Adams. And I had at this point spent, a month or two really looking at the numbers and understanding the business and the best I could to help my dad just in evenings or weekends and stuff. So I felt pretty comfortable that if this guy started his own company, Adams could survive that. And obviously it did. It kept growing despite him starting his own company eventually. And so when he threatened to leave, my dad changed the locks in the doors and called me that night and said, "You ever considered a career in pest control?" And I'm pretty much reciting this word for word because I've told the story many times. And I said, "No, what does it pay?" And he goes, "What do you make?" And I told him what I made. And he goes, "I'll match that." And I said, "All right, Dad, I'll try it for a year. If I don't like working with you or I don't like the industry, I'll go back to IT management. A year off won't probably hurt me in my career path, might even help me. So I'll try it." And as it turns out, working with my dad was great, loved it. We'd go to lunch probably 3 days a week, talk different things. He taught me a ton. And I really like the industry too. I like the people. I like learning about the bugs. There's no stop to learning. I kind of became a bit more of a bed bug expert than maybe any other bugs. But, I sit in an office most of the time now. But every once in a while, when I can get out in the field or talk with a technician or share some knowledge, I just really enjoy that. And so it's been a great, great transition for me to go from software bugs to real bugs.
Yeah, that is a wonderful background, and thank you for sharing. Todd, what year was that all of this happened?
The partner passed away in 95 and I joined in the spring of 96.
96. Okay. So like you said, 26, 25 or so years. Well, that is fantastic. You guys, since then, as you said and mentioned, have grown tremendously. And like many pest control companies, so you didn't just do that the last 20 years, but like a lot of pest control companies out there have been a lot that have experienced growth despite the pandemic and the technical recession that we're in right now. Let's talk a little bit about some of the issues, and I can lead out on this one, but some of the issues that have come from that. When I talk to people in the industry, and it's not just pest, home service as well, hiring is a real challenge right now. And from my experience, or, my side of the table, we have in the last 2 years probably tripled and quadrupled down on our budget for recruiting as it relates to ads on Monster or Indeed or all those different sites out there that you can post for. Before we didn't have a recruiter, like a permanent recruiting person. Now we have two, and so we've tripled and quadrupled down on our budget and probably tripled or quadrupled down on our effort to get people in. It feels to me like things are getting a little bit better in the last quarter or 6 months, but we've certainly had to make big adjustments that we weren't anticipating as it relates to compensation increases and compensation packages. We're in a good spot now, but we're also getting into the cooler season, the off season in pest control. And we are continuing to hire and staff now for what will come in the spring and summer and fall of next year into 2023. I wonder what things you have done or thought about or considered to help you to service all the growth that you guys have experienced the last couple of years.
Oh, it's a great question. And it's a question that's, going around the industry with everybody. Everybody's looking for more people. The simple answer is, I think, is pay people more. That's a lot of times as owners, we think that that's the solution to everything is spend money at it. I did have a temp agency person who was a part owner of an agency, no longer an owner. He was thinking about getting into the mosquito business, called me, asked some questions, decided not to get into the mosquito business. But he had said, "I'll give you one secret since you were so helpful with your time." He goes, "The secret is pay $2 an hour more and you won't need a temp agency." I'm like, huh? And so he says, "You'll attract better people. You'll attract more people if you pay more." But again, that's too simplistic. A lot of employees these days are looking for different things. And in a company our size, there might be some that are looking for pay, but there are some that are looking for better healthcare benefits. And there's some that are looking for short-term disability, and others don't care about short-term disability. So, it's a little difficult to provide a one-size-fits-all for a larger company. But if you understand what your employees need, you're going to reduce your turnover. And then if you can attract better people, not just people who are going from one job to one job, to the next, they're always hunting. Sometimes you might be better off going after the passive people who aren't really looking for a job, but you can find them, attract them, and pull them in, and they'll stick with you because they weren't looking in the first place. But there's other people who come and they're looking for a job, and they'll be with you for 6 months, and they'll do what I've learned is a term called parking. They go and take a job to park there for a while until they think about what job they want to try next. And so it's a different culture than when I grew up, or maybe when you grew up, where, maybe, when my grandparents took a job, they kind of planned on taking a job for life. I knew coming out of college, I probably wasn't going to be at the same company for the rest of my career. But nowadays, people go and look for jobs sometimes for 3 or 6 months at a time. So, and we invest a lot into our people for training. And so that just kills me. So I have to find people that actually want a career, who are really interested in pest control in the first place, not just interested in a job.
Well, and I love that you say, Todd, especially in a company your size, it's not a one size fits all. Different people want different things. They're at different stages of your life. And if you ask your employees or survey them, normally they're not shy. They will tell you exactly what they want. But as you've done some of that, what are some of the things that has come back in the feedback loop of what your employees want or have wanted in the last couple of years that maybe previously wasn't really a thing?
These days with inflation, people are wanting pay because they feel like they're falling behind, making the same kind of pay. So, we've made some major adjustments in pay, and we'll be doing that again with the next round. But I go back to my Honeywell days, and I remember one guy asking the president of Honeywell, and he says, when are we going to get benefits as good as 3M offers? Because 3M was known for really good benefits, almost like I'll jokingly say everything was free. And the president of Honeywell, or the president of our division, I remember him saying, well, if you want to go work for 3M, you can go work for 3M. It's true, they have great benefits, and you'll pay less for those benefits than we do here at Honeywell. But you're also going to earn a whole lot less in pay. They choose to give great benefits and lower pay. Here we give you better pay and a little bit worse benefits. So, businesses can't give everything to everybody at all times. There's throttles, and it might not be the right place if what you want is zero benefits and maximum pay. And it also might not be the right place if you want every benefit paid for and covered and you still want maximum pay. You're not going to get everything.
Well, over here on our end, we've put a lot of effort into educating our employees about, a total compensation package. And so your hourly rate or your salary is one pretty significant piece of, your entire compensation package. But just with your example of 3M and Honeywell, you need to take all things into account. So how many hours are you working? What does your shift look like? Do they offer a 401k or not? That's something that we've done in the last, I think, year that we've launched that I never thought we would do that. But some people were very, very interested in that. And so, what does the healthcare look like? Where are you in your life? What is your personal situation as it relates to healthcare, and what types of benefits do you need? What type of PTO is there? And so it's not just I make $15 an hour and they're offering $16 an hour over there. You could actually go take that $16 an hour job and you would be much worse off than if you stayed at the $15. And so my point is that especially with the younger crowd, we've put a good amount of work into walking people through that and letting them know, hey, this is an entire compensation package type of thing. And so it would be a good idea, whether you're here or somewhere else, to look at all of that and really compare apples to apples. One of the things that you said before we went live that was not a shock, but is something that probably most business owners haven't done the last 2 or 3 decades, is you guys kind of reduced your marketing spend or your marketing budget and kind of redeployed or reallocated some of those resources to maybe a dollar or 2 or 3 hour more for hourly employees and other sorts of things. And so is that something that you guys did to be able to make sure you could still service the calls that were coming in despite reducing your marketing spend?
Yeah, I mean, it was a strange spot. I mean, I've seen us do that once before for a brief period of time for like a peak month, where it's like, hey, we just don't need more leads for this month. But we had our advertising largely turned off for much of the summer this year because we wanted to focus on our current customers. We spend a lot of money to get new customers, and we don't spend as much money to keep our current customers. And that's true of almost every business, every industry. But we just said, why sell more business and then not be able to service our current customers, irritating them, taking higher cancels? Those are our most cost-effective customers to service. So we turned off a lot of the advertising. We turned it back on here or there as needed. Still grew tremendously this year. Our brand seems to have some residual effect from advertising in the past because we do a fair amount of image advertising. And so, we're looking at next year's like, okay, well, how much do we budget for this next year? Do we budget the normal amount we normally would, or do we scale it back some, or do we consider it to be a normal year or a year where we want to be a little more aggressive? I mean, so, these are decisions they have to make, but I honestly, we're questioning how much we commit to our vendors, because we usually commit a whole year's budget to them in the off season, and then they might get disappointed if we turn it off or want us to spend it in Q4, which in Minnesota, there's nothing flying outside in Q4. It's supposed to be like 33 degrees today. So,
no bugs, and sometimes not even any humans outside,
Right. Yep. Well, that's why they call it God's country up here. We can walk on water 6 months out of the year.
I love that.
So yeah, we definitely are in a different spot. And in years past, if we set a goal, let's just say we were going to set a goal of growing by $2 million, we would spend a lot of energy trying to figure out how to generate $2 million more in revenue. Okay, what are we going to come up with a new service? Are we going to advertise more? How are we going to add a salesperson? What are we going to do to generate $2 million in revenue? And we weren't too worried about getting that work done. But now it's just the opposite. We've got, some pretty lofty growth goals for next year. And we're frankly not worried about how we're going to get that revenue. We're more worried about how are we going to get the people to service that revenue.
And so please speak to that point, because I think that this could be one of the key takeaways for myself and everyone that's listening. You said that you are already, and we're only in the end of September here, but preparing with your management team and executive team for next year. If you can, what are some of those things that you plan to do to service the growth and clients? Not that you didn't do this year, but I think that you, along with everyone else, probably learned some things this last busy season. Are there any either big adjustments or changes that you plan to make so that you can service customers that are coming on better, or take better care of employees and not burn them out?
So this year, we really did focus on our current employees. We just kind of had part of every fall, we do what we used to call strategic planning meetings. Now we've renamed it for this year to annual fall workshop, because we really want to get input from a lot of different employees. And so sometimes it's not all strategic. It's just kind of a workshop. We can bring up topics and break in different groups. And I love that we've done that for the last 11 or 12 years. So last year, what came out of that was let's focus on the people. And we basically said, look, we're going to spend at least $500,000 more on our employees in some way, shape, or form, whether it's wage increases, whether it's increased benefits. And for the last 3 years, we've largely eaten any increases in benefit costs, because as we've been able to grow, we've been able to do that. If we weren't growing, we would have a hard time being able to do that. So we're sharing with employees the success that we're having as owners. And so we focused on the people this year. So now this fall, at the end of October, we have our 2-day meeting, and we'll talk about next season. I know our human resources team is coming up with a recruiting plan. We have our budget goal as far as how many dollars we're going to do next year, broken down by month. We have our people plan, how many people we need to do that for as technicians in the field, and then how many people need to support them as far as agents and schedulers and things like that, and then the rest of the overhead. So we've got that part done, but HR is still working on the plan. So I can't tell you the plan. It's not a secret. I just don't know what it is yet. It hasn't been presented yet, but I do know that they, have heavily relied on Indeed in the past, and I know that's worked well enough to get to the level we've needed in the past or close. But we don't think that that's going to work well enough going forward. So we are going to probably be trying a bunch of different things, and we have tried things in the past, but we're going to double down on some of the things that were kind of working in the past, and kind of come up with some new techniques for this next year. And so I think that's roughly the plan is keep using Indeed, but we got to do a lot more and find other ways to really hit the next level. And we're going to increase kind of the staffing we have. We too, like you, Austin, have a full-time recruiter on staff, but I don't think she can do it alone, to go to the next level. So we've got to get her some assistance.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, from a really high level, here are some of the things that I heard that I think are important. And it kind of goes back to the old adage is that if you fail to plan, you can plan to fail. So everyone that's listening, Todd and the group at Adams are out there in the fall of the previous year, planning month by month, budgets, employees, growth, revenue growth, those sorts of things. They're doing that now. And this is how a PCT top 100 company does it. They don't do it in March or April of that same year. And so they are far ahead of the curve in planning and preparing and learning from mistakes or challenges from the previous year and busy season. I want to segue into the last 5 or 10 minutes that we've got, Todd, into the software that you've created. The pest control industry is very competitive. The software space may be even more competitive than that. Where did where did the idea for Blue Star Field Service software system come from? Was it a pain point? Did you see a gap in the industry? How was this kind of born, and where did it come from?
So I just want to, before I answer that, I want to go back to one more thing about our fall workshop or strategic planning. It's not all about creating a plan, and what you said, your old axiom of failure to plan is totally right. But also, don't necessarily have a plan that has to be perfect. Any plan that you are executing to some level of success is better than no plan. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be executed perfect. And so one of maybe 10 years ago, we started looking at, we were on an industry leading software, I won't say the name, and we had been on it for 13 years, and we were growing frustrated with the support. We were growing frustrated with the speed of development, things breaking during their upgrade process. And so we just said, look, we can develop our own, and we can develop something better than that. So our goal was not to build something cheaper. Lord knows I've spent more money developing my own software than it would have been to stick with the industry leading software. As much as it's gotten even more expensive in recent years, this has cost me more money. But we've been able to take that and use it for Adams and scale. So when we turn our sights on development to what Adams needs, we're able to add $2 million in revenue and not add anyone in the office staff. We're able to add $2 million in revenue in the field and maybe not add any technicians in the field, or add a few technicians, but nowhere near what you would typically add. So we've been able to take the software and really make it work for us, as well as make it work for our customers. So we've been able to take it and sell pest control services to our customers who want certain things out of their software. And we've been able to use the software as a tool to in some cases, triple what a customer was paying some other pest control company, but willing to pay us in part because of what our software would provide for that customer. So it's really helped us be a competitive tool in our marketplace. And we do sell our software to other pest control companies. And we do show up on site for training and engagement next week. We have 4 people flying to a company in the South that is going live on our software. And so we're not just sending them a bunch of videos and having web meetings to train them. We actually show up and are on site for the first week to support them and to train them thoroughly and help them through the learning curve.
No, that's incredible. We use Pest Routes in Phoenix, and before that, we used another software. And I think that it is really neat to see the advancements that have been made technologically in software in the last decade or so. And that is just a very fast moving space. I can only imagine the inquiries that come into software companies or CRMs to say, well, we do it this way, so could you create that widget or this plugin, or this customer has this need, sort of thing. But it's really neat to see, and there's a lot of good options out there for software, but I can see a total advantage. And like you said, it's cost probably a small fortune, but to building your own proprietary software to be able to serve your clients in the way that aligns with your strategic planning. What are some things, Todd, that you're the most proud of as it relates to the software? I mean, is there not like a selling point, but is there something really neat that the software does that others don't? I mean, you certainly piqued my interest when you said we can add, and my question to this is it sustainable, or how long is that sustainable? But to add $2 million in top line revenue without adding additional office staff or people in the field or minimal people in the field, tell me more about that. I think every person is probably, how do we do that? Aside from
full honesty, the field component was kind of a 1-year thing where we added a lot in revenue without adding any technicians, and we were able to get it done. And largely through better routing and scheduling, optimization tools. And which others have told us we're really strong on the routing and optimization tools, which doesn't matter too much to a 4-person company, but it probably matters to anybody's like 10 employees or up. Another thing we are pretty good at is getting data out of the system in the hands of people who need it to manage. So I think we're the only ones who have what we call a daily dashboard. So every night, pretty much every employee, if you have it configured this way, is going to get an email. So when they wake up in the morning, they read an email with basically a report that's relevant to them and their job. So if I'm a manager, I can see where the company is at, month to date, how many orders we have left to do, how many estimated hours of time it's going to take to do those orders, how much production we did yesterday, this week, last week, what we did last year for the month. So I know how well we're doing this year for the month, year over year. I can see my team, the same sort of numbers for my team. I can see the individuals on my team, who's ahead, who's behind. And so I don't have to log into a system. Our prior system would have taken us over 20 reports to run, and it still wouldn't have given me all this data. So you have that waiting.
And you'd have to hire 3 additional admin just to be able to provide the reports for you.
Yeah. And the reality is, us as managers or technicians or agents, because they all have their own versions of this report. AR has their own version of report that tells them about AR. All these people, they don't want to get up in the morning, go to work, and have to think, okay, I got to log in today and pull this report with this criteria, or maybe have some saved reports, and then pull this one and look through it, and pull this one and look through it. It's there waiting for you in your email. So it's one of the things that I like the most. My employees like that. They know exactly where things are at. Maybe they don't look at it every day, but it does provide the information that they need to make better, more timely decisions on how to manage themselves or their team or what have you.
What have you learned in developing your own software? What's a big setback you either had, or did you ever want to call it quits on the software, or what's something that you've learned in developing a CRM like that?
I've never wanted to call it quits, but I think when we were deciding to get in, and it took about a year or so to kind of get something developed. We had a trade show booth for 5 years, but at the time there were only about 3 software companies exhibiting when we started developing. And then a year later, we had a booth and there were 7. And a year later, there's, a couple of the big players that had come in, and they have a quad booth or a 6-space booth, and they have 20 to 30-year-olds running around their booth, attracting you into the booth, trying to, get you to talk to them, there's nice, young, attractive people, and then they try to sell you software. And so the competition just really ratcheted up that, our timing of entering the market wasn't as good from that standpoint. So after 5 years of exhibiting, we kind of realized we're not very good at selling it. So let's not sell it. I mean, we sell it, but let's not focus on that. So if I'm going to spend $30,000 on a booth and shipping it there, and electrical and internet and staffing it and the whole 9 yards, let's just spend the $30,000 in developing. And so we focused on Adams for a year, and that's kind of when we did the thing. And we've actually had success this year onboarding more clients this year than we have in the recent years. And I knew that was probably going to happen. At some point, the software would reach a level of maturity and attractability to others that they would get in. So we're having that now, and we're doing more work with Southern companies than we have before. So we're having to do termite stuff that we didn't do in Minnesota. And I have looked at what's available out there, and being the computer person, but also the business person, I'm kind of unique in that I can look at process improvement with some of these companies and figure out how they're doing it. And I ask the questions of like, why are you doing it this way? And I don't ask it because I think you're wrong and screwed up and you shouldn't be doing it that way. I ask because I want to understand it. And then I can go back and communicate that to my developers, because I really am the project manager in weekly meetings. And I can communicate that, hey, this is what they need, and this is kind of what they're asking, but I actually think this is really going to help them develop it better. And so my programmers can understand what the users are wanting, because a lot of times they don't speak the same language, but I can translate for them.
Yeah, they need a translator. Well, Todd, that is absolutely amazing. I mean, both your companies growing like gangbusters. As we round this out, what is the best way for people to be able to connect with you and your companies, either as it relates to Adams or your software company? Do they find you on LinkedIn? What websites would you direct them to so that they can get more information if they need or want it?
Sure. So you can go to adamspestcontrol.com and you can find me there. My email is tleyse, so TLEYSE @adamspestcontrol.com. Or our software is called Blue Star, and it's BLU space STAR. And the website is bluestarsoftware.com for more information about Blue Star.
Wonderful. Todd, thank you so much for your time. I know it's both limited and valuable, and so I appreciate you carving some of it out to spend with me and my audience. And all of you that are listening and patched in, I really appreciate you taking the time out too. Great episode, great guest. And these will drop. I think we're going to start in October, dropping them 2 times a week rather than just 1, because we've had a lot of guests on and interest lately. So appreciate everyone. And until next time, create a great day.
Thanks, Austin. I'm looking forward to the November 3rd session in Phoenix and your book coming out. I'm going to see if I can't try to make that.
Hey, very good. We would love it, Todd. Thank you. And thank you, everybody else.
Thank you for listening to the Multiply You podcast. You'll see us again soon when you subscribe for future episodes.